Hi, welcome back to this tutorial on API automation with Karate DSL.
Let us create the first test script. Before creating our first test script, it is mandatory for us to set up the config file for Karate. Let us have a look at how we can set up the config file. Let us navigate to the GitHub page where we saw the dependencies for Karate DSL. Let us just copy this file content and create our Karate config file in the class path directly. The name should be karate-config.js, and let us paste the content here. Let me clear it off from certain comments, and we'll add our own comments here, and we will make necessary changes. So by default, if environment variable is not provided, it will take the dev environment. Since we are not working on any real-time application, we don't have any environment variables. So let's consider if we have different environments, we can pass in the environment variable via the Maven command line, and that variable will be set over here in n parameter. And if environment variable is not set via command line, the direct value is set. Currently it is set to dev. As a tester, we generally execute our test case in QA, so I'm updating it to QA. The var config, the variable config, is the one that we have to look into for most of our data. So the config variable will carry almost all the required data. So I'll clear this out and show you what is to be added. Three things can be added over in config file. One is the URL, other is the feature path, so it will be the common feature path, which is the reusable feature files path, and if there is any secret, we can put it over here. And there is some override mechanisms for this config file, which can be put in here. So if something is to be overridden from the common config variable, or something is different, we can, which is pertaining to that particular environment, we can put those variables or data inside the if blocks. So if it is for QA environment, QA config data overrides. If it is for dev, it will be dev config data overrides. And there are some configurations for Karate that is already defined in this config file. One is connection timeout and the other is read timeout. Generally, we don't, in test environments, we will not get any response within 5 seconds for certain applications. So we can increase the read timeout to whatever time that we want. And connect timeout is a time required, or it is a time to connect to the server from the client application, that is our Karate program. The read timeout is the time required or time to wait till a response is received by Karate DSL. This config data is accessible from inside any feature file. So for our automation testing, we have our GoRest application URL, which is here. So this is a base URL that I'm using. So if you want, you can just add the base URI gorest.co.in. You can add this in your test script also, but since this will be common for every endpoint, I'm just adding this public API in the configuration itself. Since we are dealing with HTTPS, I can directly set it to true, and the documentation on this can be found in the readme file. So SSL can be a boolean or a string or a JSON. So I'm using the boolean value. So configure SSL is equal to true. So this is set in the feature file, and the one that I have set is in the global config file. So it is configure SSL true. So let's create our first test case. I'm going to rename this folder to GoRest, and let me create the first file, which is users.feature. The karate test is similar to the cucumber test, only that we have to use a predefined steps just prescribed by karate DSL. So like in cucumber, we have a feature, so it is a users feature, and we can write our scenario here. Let us consider this particular URL endpoint. So let us get the first 20 users. In order to get the first 20 users, we need the authorization key as well as this API and the get method. So we have already set up this particular base URL. So we are going to set up the base URL. Given URL GoRest, which is from here, and we have the path which is users, and we have a header which is authorization. I have copied the authorization key from Postman collection, and I'll be setting it here like this, and when method is get, then status must be 200. So this is the normal validation part. just checking whether the status code is 200 or not for a GET request. We can also test for some data which is available in the response also. In order to access the response data, we need to check like match response dot code number equals 200. So we are validating the response also here. This is our first test case. In the next video, we will be learning how to create a runner file and execute this test case.